Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Hangout number 164. I don't know why I'm doing a crazy symbol. I'm just thinking 164 times I've done Hangouts. This kind of blows my mind. But I love doing Hangouts because I'm here with my patron friends, and they get to talk about just any old thing that comes across my mind or their minds, which can be scary sometimes, but I do enjoy it. And if you'd like to be in the chat room with the great people who are here, please do click on the link below for Patreon. Join Patreon. It's $5 a month, and it helps this educational channel. And you get to be part of the 2 live chats a week during my live shows. And you don't have to do that. You can always just subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to the channel. If you like true crime and actually want an education in profiling and crime scene analysis and not just some stuff, please do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell for notifications. Check my playlist, and hello everybody in the chat room. I've said hello to most people who are here, and Joe is now here. Hey, welcome, Joe. You're here. It's midnight in the UK, so you are up late. Beulah is now here as well, and I'm trying to see if anybody I've missed. I think I've said hello to everybody else. So let's get on with it because, yes, Joe, where have you been? We love you. So come back. Anyway, I'm going to start off with the Menendez Brothers because there's breaking news on that. But just so I can have a pleasant moment before I go to discuss that, and everybody always asks me, what about the cat? Okay, feral cat has done some interesting things. It's now been 7 months. And in the last 2 nights, he's done something I've never seen before. Instead of crawling into the room, he actually came in and sat down like a house cat. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, whoa, he looks like a normal cat. And he also did an unusual thing, not last night, but the night before. He came up next to my bed and he actually put his paw up on the bed like he wanted to jump up, which I've never seen. He's never moved his paw off the floor before, except the one time he hissed at me and tried to whack the food out of my hand. But other than that, so little progress being made with Mac the feral cat. It is my experiment for the year. So, and sometimes I wonder, no. He's not there yet. It's not. He does take a nap in my bedroom now for like an hour. So he's feeling more secure, and little things are getting there where he seems like he likes me. But then if I just now, he just came and ate his food next to me, and I moved my hand and he immediately ran toward the door, and I had to look away and pretend I was ignoring him for him to come back. So he's still very feral. Let's put it that way. What? No, I don't want him to have a litter box inside. Are you kidding me? I don't want to deal with litter boxes. He comes and goes as he pleases, and he only comes in the evening. He comes in usually around 6 or 7 for his main meal, and then he comes back later for treats, somewhere around 11 o'clock. And then in the middle of the night, I leave out a little bit of dry food, and he usually comes back somewhere in the wee hours of the morning, eats that. He never comes around in the day. But no, I don't want him using a litter box at my house. That's the whole idea of a cat door. Oh, no. Yeah, I'm growing on him. Maybe. All right. So just want to say that. Let's see. And some people ask about my paintings because I do have a life outside of crime. And this is my recent one. This is a boat in Asia. And this is done in pastel. And that was my thing I did just a couple days ago in my art class. So it was fun. So anyway, all right, now I'm down to business. I just want to run away people who are like, if you don't get started with the true crime stuff, I don't want to stick around. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm working on learning more about how to do pastels. So, and I do enjoy pastels. I've given up on acrylics. Those are acrylics behind me with a palette knife, but I really hate doing acrylics. And every time I do them, I'm not happy. So one word out to all of you people, always try new things. But if at some point you really hate the new thing you're trying, dump it and go do something else you like. Don't waste your time. So anyway, who says that? I have many comments you don't see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people are like, oh, just get to the point, lady. Anyway, yes, and I'm going to get there right now with this. It'll be a true crime if they let the Menendez brats out. Murders for sure. Now, Let me read you a little bit of this, and then I want to go to your comment, Carla, you made earlier. Your 2 comments. I'm going to put them on the screen. So don't say too much, folks. I won't be able to scroll back up and find them. But great comments, Carla, and I'm with you with this. And I want to put yours up because I thought they were great. All right. Yes, Los Angeles County prosecutors. Hold on a second. Why is my microphone like halfway across the table? Hold on a second. And completely messed up. What in the world? Hold on a second. I'm just trying. I don't know. I don't know if I was quiet earlier. Some people want me to be quiet, but it's not in the right position. Anyway, okay, moving along. Starting out well tonight, aren't I? I'm in a mood. Anyway, Los Angeles County prosecutors are recommending that Eric and Lyle Menendez be resentenced for the 1989 killings of their parents in their family's Beverly Hills home, providing the brothers with a chance at freedom after 34 years behind bars. District Attorney George Gascon announced his decision at a Thursday afternoon press conference. We are going to recommend to the court on Friday. Oh, that's today. I guess this came a little earlier than other articles. That the life without the possibility of parole should be removed, and they would be sentenced for murder. That would normally mean a sentence of 50 years to life, and because of their age, they're both under 26 at the time of the crimes, they will be eligible for parole immediately. I believe they have paid their debt to society, he said. Okay, why is it his determination what the debt to society is? I thought that was the jury's decision, but okay. Gascon said that as part of his decision was based on a review of how the brothers have behaved in prison. Even faced with the likelihood of life in prison, they avoided misbehavior or joining gangs and instead worked to help fellow inmates to improve their lives. Well, that is lovely. I admit that. But serial killers have also done such wonderful things in prison, because once you're in prison, there's not much choice. So you have to, depending on what your previous life was like the Menendez brothers are unlikely to do gangs because they were rich kids. If you were MS-13 and ended up in prison or whatever, you probably are going to be hooking up with gangs, because that's going to give you the best life in prison. If you're a serial killer, many serial killers are, shall we say, not exactly tough dudes. They can't play the tough dude game. So what they do is they befriend guards. They go to psychology stuff. They go to the therapy. They do stuff that makes them look good so they can get dates, get married in prison. Oh, like the Menendez brothers who got married in prison. So they learned to manipulate the prison system to the best of their benefit. It doesn't mean they're not psychopaths. It doesn't mean that they're better people. It just means that under those circumstances, they're doing those things to better their own lives. All right. So then the brothers themselves and other family members were not notified of his decision. So they're going, isn't that great? Anyway, here's the important point. Gascon is currently locked in a battle for re-election against former prosecutor Nathan Hochman, or Hochman, I don't know how to pronounce that guy's name, who released a written statement questioning the timing of the decision to so close to the election. You think people do not understand DAs are political animals. They have to be reelected, therefore they have to be voted on, and therefore they go out to the community and they want the community to be happy with them. And depending on whatever the community thinks at the time, and we're not talking many years ago when the crime happened, but now that these people aren't affected, and now that these people have the Netflix rendition of things and all the other stuff that's come in, the Innocence Project and everything else, you get DAs who, in a bid to become popular, to be popular, they do things that will get them elected or make the news media, whatever it is that is the thing of the hour. So he says this: DA George Gascon received the Menendez habeas corpus petition in May of 2023 and request for sentencing in February of 2024. Yet he has waited until days before the November 5th election, 30 points down in the polls, with articles coming out about his failed policies that have led to additional murders of innocent people, to release his recommendation for resentencing. By releasing it now, Gascon has cast a cloud over the fairness and impartiality of his decision, allowing Angelenos to question whether the decision was correct or just, or just. Another desperate political move by a DA running a losing campaign, scrambling to grab headlines through a made-for-TV decision. Angelenos and everyone deserve better. Well, there you go. And that is the way things work. Now, I want to go to Carla's point. Let me roll back up here because I got to go back to the far back. Okay. All right, let's start with the first one Carla said. It's unbelievable. They must have been scheming this for years. Well, very likely because they've had the Innocence Project and their lawyers involved in this for a long period of time. But this is what I love, what you said, Carla. I am still someone unsuccessfully wrapping my head around the appalling fact that a DA can set aside and cancel a jury verdict. Yes, and as much as I am opposed to civilian juries, if you're going to have a system that states the civilian jury system is the best system in the world, that we don't believe in a professional jury system. We believe in a civilian jury system, a jury of your peers, whoever the hell those people are. I don't understand who the jury of my peers would be. I really don't get it. I mean, if you're MS-13, who are the juries of your peers? I mean, but anyway, I digress. So you supposedly believe in this system, yet you can have a DA simply blow away the jury's decision for a political purpose. It's unbelievable that the same people arguing one are totally for the other. Because the real problem on both sides is that many of the people who fight for civilian juries and for these new conviction and integrity units, that's the ones that the DAs are using, the prosecutors' offices are using, over 100 of them now in this country in major cities, where they look back at cases that could be questionable. Maybe they were wrongly convicted, but mostly it's about politics. Mostly it's about whether Netflix does a show on it or whether podcasts are done on it. And if the public and the Innocence Project, who all work in collusion, not the public, the Innocence Project, these CIUs and the Innocence Project, CIUs, and all of the media all work together to push some narrative, get everybody riled up, and then the DA rolls through and goes, let's let that dude go. And without eliminating the appeal system, eliminating the civilian jury system, he just decides on his own. And then there's cheering because he saved some guy from death penalty or from prison who the whatever the popular, what's popular in public, not justice, not following the law, but popular in public demands. And so then Carla says this other thing. There needs to be a long, detailed, standard process for DAs who want to cancel a jury decision. Checks and balances to be fair to everyone. Hallelujah, well stated. That is exactly true. How is it these DAs don't have any process? They can do anything they want behind the backs of everybody and get away with it. And this is it's a horrifying thing that is happening across the country. We're seeing it over and over and over again. And people think it's the best thing ever. And somebody wrote me and they're like, how could you be opposed to a conviction integrity unit? How would you be opposed to the prosecutors looking back and seeing if something was wrongly done? How could you not want to save people from having been wrongly convicted? Well, I don't have an issue with that. I have an issue with the way it's done, which has nothing to do with our system of justice. It has everything to do with a political issue and done by one or a few little people bolstered by these organizations and the media who are pushing for things. This is not a correct way to do things. It's appalling. And yet nobody's speaking out against it. Well, maybe me and maybe Carla, but it's very frustrating because it's like everybody's like cheering. I'm like, how can you be cheering this? This is an atrocity, and it's totally against our system. So, what are you excited about? And it's very frustrating. And so I will get to also the issue about why the Menendez brothers are suddenly getting off. Okay, so Carla obviously feels that they deserve to be where they are. They reloaded to murder their mother, for goodness sakes. How is it innocent in anyone's book? All right, let me get to that. Because Carla, at least you're asking that question, which is reasonable. All right. What has happened is the issue of motive. That if you have what people consider a reasonable motive. Now, motive used to be the only motive you were allowed to have to not get charged with murder was self-defense. My motive was I thought I was about to die, and therefore I saved myself by pulling a trigger. That when I learned about owning a weapon and using a weapon, I went to a week-long training with a top police trainer in the country, and Masad Ayub was his name. Masad Ayub. Excellent. And it was 8 hours a day for 5 days straight. A good portion of that training was, when do you have the right to pull the trigger? And the only answer was always the same. When you think that if you don't pull the trigger, you will be dead in the next few seconds, or someone you love, or any human being will be dead within the next few seconds. You're saving your life, or you're saving somebody else's life. End of discussion. You can't pull the trigger because you don't like the person. You can't pull the trigger because you want to take revenge. You can't pull the trigger when they're running away because you're pissed off. That has never been acceptable. So the Menendez brothers now are being given a new acceptable motive. Your parents mistreated you as a child. Therefore, years later, after the actual abuse has stopped, if it even existed, I'm not even going to get into that because that's a whole other matter. It may have existed. It may have existed somewhat and been exaggerated. It may never have existed. Point being, the only people that really know are the Menendez brothers. So, but let's say it did exist, that Daddy was a pervert. Daddy was a child sex offender. He incestuously sexually assaulted his own children. You can't get more scumbaggy than that. That dude would belong in prison for the rest of his life. Mommy supposedly knew what was going on and totally ignored it. In which case, she's an accessory, and she should go to prison for the rest of her life. I don't object to that point. However, lacking 100% proof, and also the fact that these were two adults who no longer were forced to be in the home. They had left the home. They were out and about every place, and especially Lyle. He was out. He wasn't even living there. I mean, they were out and about. They were adults. They could go any place they wanted to. Maybe not being financially backed by their daddy anymore, but they could go on their way. The claim that they killed their parents because they thought their dad was about to kill them is totally unproven and nonsensical. So the reason they killed the parents were one of two. One, they wanted the money. And after they killed their parents in cold blood, they lied to the police and were very good about lying to the police and cried and all that stuff. So you got to be careful about their later, when they were in court, how good some of them, like Eric was pretty good in court, seeming like he was like he really had been sexually abused. But then again, they were pretty good actors. So they killed their parents. And if they were if the whole thing was about the trauma they had experienced, they could have done a lot of things. They could have quietly gone on with life. They could have given money to children who were abused, but no, they went on and had a hell of a time. They partied, they bought crap, they got all kinds of fancy stuff. They had a great time. They did not behave as if, now you could say, well, the parents deserved it. They got their money. And why shouldn't they damn well enjoy their money after all those years of torture? You can say whatever you want. The problem here is the same. They were adults. They weren't trying to escape. They weren't in a situation where they had to shoot the parents to escape. They went and shot the parents in cold blood, premeditatedly. And that, even if you want to believe the sex assaults were real and as traumatic as that would be revenge. There is nothing in the law that says revenge is acceptable. It's not. Revenge is simply not acceptable. If you have a guy who's thought has been brutally murdered by a serial killer, and he's on his way into court, and Daddy shows up and shoots the guy in the head, he goes to prison because you can't do that. And he would have way more reason than the Menendez brothers. But the thing that the Menendez brothers really concerns me is that this is opening the door to every single person out there who says, I was abused as I was growing up. I was sexually abused. I was physically abused. I was emotionally abused, whatever. I have the right to go back and kill who, and the same thing is true for marital situations. I have the right to go back and kill whomever I say abused me. And if you're going to open that door, you're going to have a flood of this kind of nonsense going on. And there is, at this point, there's no proof of abuse. There is that letter that Eric wrote to his cousin saying his daddy came in. And who knows even if it's true at the time. Teenagers can make up stories to lie. It seems authentic, but if you're a psychopath, you can lie like a son of a gun, make up stories just to get attention. I can't prove it's not true, and I can't prove it is true. But I can prove, and so it's I can't prove, but all the evidence in the courtroom showed, and the jury believed, that these two premeditatedly planned to murder both their parents, and they did. And that's murder one. And those are very dangerous people. I don't care if you look back and say, well, maybe they were abused. I'm sorry, but it takes a certain kind of person to go in and blow away people, lie to the police, and then go and enjoy life on a spending spree. It takes a certain kind of people, probably psychopaths, one or both. So that's the fact. People think they're really nice guys. No, they're not. They weren't nice guys then. Now, maybe the parents made them into psychopaths. Serial killers, why don't serial killers use that same crap then? Well, I wouldn't have been a serial killer except I was abused as a child. So therefore, why should I spend my life in prison? Yeah, I know I killed other people, but my parents made me do it. So it gets really out of hand. The whole point of having a law is that the law is a law, that you can't break that law. That's that line I'm talking about, that thick line. You step over that thick line, then you pay the price. And if you're willing to step over that line, you should be willing to pay the price. They knew that they were committing a premeditated homicide, and that would give them a life in prison, if not in a death penalty. They made their choice. They could have gone away. They could have filed police reports against their parents. They could have done all kinds of things. They chose to commit homicide. I say they chose their punishment. But if we open that door, it's going to get really, really creepy. That's a good question. Why didn't Cousin Andy bring that letter to the first trial? Instead, he told the same story when they were 10 years old. I don't know. And see, this is where everything gets very blurry. And by the way, some people have asked me, I will watch the Menendez Brothers thing on Netflix. I tried. And I was so appalled within a few minutes. I was like, yeah, I can't watch this crap. So I didn't like it, but it does have an influence on people. And that was the whole point of those kind of things. I want to point out Sarah Boone under this issue, because Sarah Boone seems like she's got the same argument. So here's Sarah, who left. It's hard. I shouldn't laugh, but man, what a messed up couple. This is Jorge Torres. Jorge Torres is the guy that got into a suitcase and she zipped him up, and then she went to sleep and left him there to die. Anyway, these two people are freaking messed up human beings. Okay, both of them. And sometimes what you get into with adults. So these are adults, so they don't have the Menendez's brothers claim, at least, that they were children when they were abused. These two are abusing the crap out of each other and staying together. And there's going to be people on either side that can argue why. She stayed because she was she had a lack of self-esteem, and he manipulated her, and he threatened her, blah blah blah. And then he's over here. He stayed because she did the same thing. I don't know. The sides are going to make up stuff. But let's take a look at it and look at why not let her off? Okay, so here we have Sarah Boone takes a stand in a murder trial. She says, I couldn't believe he fit in the suitcase. That dude was barely 100 pounds. That was a small guy. I don't know how much drugs he took to get down to that size, but okay. He's 42 years old, and she is on trial for the February 2020 death of her boyfriend. Over 4 years after Torres died, she took the stand to talk about what happened. And they were playing a game of hide and seek, which is what 40-year-olds do. Boone said during the game, she ran up to an upstairs restroom to hide in the shower. Well, that was a good hiding place. Bet it would be hard for him to find you there. So ridiculous. She waited for quite some time because Jorge just couldn't find her. Well, look, okay, I got to stop here. When you play a game of hide and seek, only one of you hides at a time, you see. So one is hiding and one is seeking. You don't both hide at the same time because then you both get stuck in the same places and nobody looks for each other. Just saying. Do they understand the game? At least that's their claim for how the game is played. So anyway, wait a minute. So she was in the restroom, the toilet, to hide in the shower and waited for quite some time. She then decided to start wrapping up the evening as she was ready to go to bed because God knows how long she spent in that shower. I might like to go to this trial. I never want to go to a trial, but I might want to sit there for this one because it's pretty funny. She went downstairs to look for Torres when she saw him settling himself into a suitcase. So what she's saying is she waited for like God knows how long, and he didn't come look for her. And then when she gave up him looking for her, she went downstairs and he was just hiding himself. So that makes sense. Again, only one person's supposed to hide and the other person is supposed to look for them. That's why it's called hide and seek. And later she added that he was trying to get himself flat, so I couldn't see that he was in there. Except you just said he was in there. I zipped him up because he was in there. We thought it was funny. Oh, so now both of you are in on the game. And we were joking about how he was small enough to fit inside the suitcase. Okay. Now, mind you, Jorge is a bit of an idiot. Okay. So I don't know what I haven't looked at this case enough to know how high they were on anything, but I'm going to say, Jorge, if you think it's funny to get inside a suitcase and see if your girlfriend, who is a real whack job, if she can zip you in there and then you trust her to unzip the case, you're kind of stupid. Okay. So, or you're really high. I don't know which one. But anyway, she goes, from there, we were laughing about it. Okay. And it was just strange that he was small enough to fit in there. And then I kind of moved it around a little bit with him in the suitcase because I guess he's 104 pounds or whatever the hell he was. And it was still funny. They were still in the suitcase. Okay. I think he and I couldn't believe he could fit in the suitcase. She's drawing him into everything, which is interesting because how long did he laugh about the whole situation where he was crushed in the suitcase and couldn't breathe? But of course, he did get in the suitcase. This is one of the problems with this case. He willingly got in the suitcase. It wasn't a case of, at least that I have not heard in this case. Now, I have not really followed this up. If I'm wrong, I'll check on your comments. I mean, there's other possibilities that she forced him in the suitcase at gunpoint, that he was totally unconscious and she's so light, she shoved him in the suitcase and zipped him up. I think that's entirely possible. And is only claiming that he was saying he was funny and that he got in on his own. So if he got in on his own, he's just an idiot. But if he was basically not altogether there and she shoved him in the suitcase, that's a whole nother matter. But I don't know that this has been presented in court. So let me know if it has been. She alleged that Torres had already pulled up the top of the suitcase on top of him. In other words, he pulled it over and she zipped him up, which she said they thought was funny. From there, I moved the suitcase around a couple of times on the wheels and moved it around, and it was still funny. We were laughing and joking. She also claimed that Torres had been abusive on multiple occasions, and the suitcase flopped over due to her moving it around. She began videotaping, noting that she wanted to take the time to talk to Torres since he was not able to get out, giving her the chance to speak to him in a manner I ordinarily would not have the ability to do. She is now going under the abused domestic partner thing here, that she normally couldn't talk to him because when she did, he'd do whatever. He'd either assault her or he'd walk out of the room. The basic two things, ignore her, whatever happens in, when you have these little arguments. And one person's trying to say, hey, another person's ignoring you, or they get angry. All right. In Boone's footage that was shown in court, a suitcase with Torres presumably inside is seen as he is heard saying her name. She tells him in part, for everything you've done to me, as she continues taping. Boone, who confirmed her testimony that she was intoxicated, and then things got heated very quickly as Torres allegedly threatened her and continued to push on the suitcase. Well, if you've been zipped inside a suitcase, probably you're saying things that are pretty angry, shall we say. After his hand allegedly got out of the suitcase, she claimed she shook the suitcase because he was trying to get out. And in a split second, she got a baseball bat and shoved his hand back in there. Then she felt safe enough to turn the suitcase back over and claimed she left the room for him to get out. Well, of course, she didn't unzip the suitcase, so, there is that. She allegedly then went to sleep and found him dead the next day. Whoa. So you didn't ever let him out of the suitcase. You knew he couldn't get out of the suitcase. He went to sleep. That's premeditated homicide. She needs to go down for murder 1. He died as a result of positional asphyxiation with environmental suffocation with a manner of death classified as a homicide. Boone, who was charged with second-degree murder, I don't know how it was second degree. It wasn't. It's first degree, in my opinion, because once she knew he could not get out of that suitcase, she knew he would die in that suitcase, and she left him in the suitcase. However, the claim here is, and it's really funny, the claim here is that she was an abused person, and that's her claim, is that he abused me, and they had these different fights, and I think he was charged 3 times with domestic abuse. She was charged once. They still stayed together, and now she's pushing this domestic. I was abused as a domestic partner, and it's interesting. At the bottom of this People article, if you're experiencing domestic violence, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Okay, so. Person under here says, the story doesn't make sense, never has, hope she gets what she deserves. All right, but let's look at it. If Jorge abused her, physically abused her, or emotionally abused her, and she felt there was no way out of that relationship, that no matter where she went, he would follow her. Like the Menendez brothers said, no matter where we go, the dad was going to come and kill us. If she says, no matter where I go, he's going to get me. One day he's going to shoot me down in a parking lot. He's going to break into my home and kill me. Then why doesn't she have the right to kill her boyfriend? Come on now. He was abusive. There's evidence of that. Why can't she kill him in self-defense? The future self-defense. She's saving herself from and what he's going to do to her. That's the same Menendez brother claim for why they killed the parents, along with the new one, which is just years of emotional abuse allow for revenge. So the Menendez brothers took the revenge and she took her revenge. What's the difference? Pam says her abuse allegation did not sound real. The word she used on the stand did not sound anything like I've ever heard from an actual abused woman. Well, that may be true. However, she did have 3 assaults on her. So obviously they're both druggies. They obviously have a real bad thing going on there. And he might be the abused partner, not her. But the point being is let's say she was an abused woman, Pam. Let's say that people believed her. Did she have the right to lock him, put him in a suitcase and let him die? Should we just let her off the hook then? Or is there a thing called the law? Carla says her life was hardly in immediate danger while he was locked in a suitcase. See, the immediate danger is the only supposed acceptable reason for homicide. Homicide is not necessarily murder. Homicide can be that you had to stop the threat. And as long as you can prove you stopped the threat, that you were about to die, then you had that, then they will look at that and decide that you're not to be prosecuted, or the jury will find you not guilty. But if there is not an immediate threat and you're not about to die and you can't prove that, revenge is not supposed to be a reason for killing people. I mean, I can think of a lot of people, like right now, I could make a list. I think most of us could. We could take out a lot of people. And once you open that door, it's a very bad door to open. And I know that the abused woman thing has been done quite often in the past. People have gotten away with it. There's movies made about a woman who's been abused. And what was the one where she said her husband has tied him up or something, set him on fire? I forgot which one that was, Farrah Fawcett or something. And, the problem is this. If you can get out that door, then that argument should not stand. As long as you can leave the house, get in a car and drive away, that argument should not be there. Now, is it true that that person might come after you and kill you later? This is true, but it's also true for stalkers. It's also true for a lot of things in life. You cannot prosecute a person for a crime they have not committed. And you can't kill a person for a crime they might commit when at the time there was no proof that they were about to commit that crime. So that doesn't mean there's not some very unfortunate situations. Yes, the horrifying stuff exists, and people do get shot down. They say, hey, they go to the police and say, my ex wants to kill me, and they can't prove anything. Police say, we can't do anything. And the police really can't do anything. And then she gets shot down and killed. And the family says, why didn't the police do something? Because you cannot put somebody in jail because somebody says in private, they threatened me. Or I thought he was abusive. You can't do it. We have laws. And sometimes the laws don't, you can't win no matter what happens. But if you start changing those laws to the point where everybody can kill for revenge because they didn't have a happy childhood, we are in trouble. Oh, well, I like plate throwing. But you want to make sure you pick the cheap plates, not the good china. Let's see. Jorge stabbed her in the back of the leg. That should have been a significant event for both of them to leave each other. Well, see, there's one of the issues. So if he stabbed her in the leg, was it in self-defense? Or was it because she pissed him off? Or whatever. Or are they just both so trashed they were fighting and he stabbed her? Again, they went back together. So one of the problems when people are in violent situations or abusive situations and they go back together, and people will give you all the stories about why people return to the one that is abusing them. I'm not saying I don't understand that. But the fact is they put themselves back in that situation and things usually get worse. But even then, you can't return to that situation and kill the person saying that I thought that when they woke up, they would kill me. And I've seen that one before. I think there was one in South Carolina, North Carolina, somewhere down there where the husband was asleep and she shot him in the back and said, well, he was abusive and he was going to kill me. But she could have walked out the door, but she didn't. She shot him instead. I can't remember if she got off on that one. I think she might have. So this is a real interesting problem. That I just think that the Menendez Brothers was one more that's going to make that. That's interesting. I did not know he wrote that. The abuse excuse. This is a Twinkie excuse, the full moon excuse, and a dozen other attempts to get out of accountability. Sleepwalking and stuff like that. Yeah. And in reality, the law says we're accountable for our actions. And that's a fact. So, but it's, less of thank you, the burning bit. Yeah. But did she have the right to really do that? And that's my question. And I'm not, as much as I have issues with abuse, I strongly believe if that wasn't self-defense, you could walk out that door, I think you should be charged with murder, because the law states that you cannot kill somebody because you think they might hurt you in the future. It's an immediate thing. So if you don't immediately think that you're going to, get killed or you're being trapped or whatever, you can't get out. I just don't think the excuse is there. And yet the funny thing is, I say this about the Gypsy Rose Blanchard thing. It drives me crazy because people hate that girl. They hate her with passion. And they feel so sorry for her psycho boyfriend who was in prison for stabbing up her mother. And they go over and over this. She's a psychopath. She got him into it. She actually was trapped. She was a person who was physically and emotionally abused by a woman who was a psychopath who kept her locked up. When she tried to leave, the mother managed to go get her back. She had stunted her daughter so badly, her daughter couldn't get work, couldn't survive out in the world. And if she went and complained, nobody believed her. So I'm not saying she shouldn't have gone to prison, but when people say, oh, she's the most horrible thing in the world, but the Menendez brothers are good. They grew up, but they played tennis. Their father gave them a restaurant. They went out into the world. Gypsy Rose was a stunted person and physically weird looking and had all kinds. She'd never been out there, and she was an adult. She never knew anything about the world. She'd been trapped with that woman. That she was in a POW camp for her entire childhood to adulthood, in a POW camp, stunted. And people have no sympathy for her. But the Menendez brothers, yeah. All right. Okay, let me go on before I keep on forever on this. Let's see what else I want to point out. There's this case, and this kind of thing drives me nuts. Okay, so there's a guy named Tyron McAlpin, a black deaf man with cerebral palsy. He was facing felony charges after 2 Phoenix police officers repeatedly punched and tasered him. And his attorney got the video, and here it is. And so here he is. He's leaving this. So what happened was the police officers were called to the store where somebody was saying that he was doing something and stealing their phone, or I don't know what he was supposedly doing in that store. But they were called, and they pointed to the guy, and they said, "That's the guy." The guy walks out of the store. This is Tyrone. And the police pull over and say, "Hey, dude, stop." And they get out of the car, and he runs for it. Then they grab him. He punches at them, and they took a lot of energy to get him down on the ground. Yes, they did punch on him. I don't know where they exactly punched. Whether the punching. Sometimes when they punch, they're doing something to try. The persons get very violent, and they're trying to just stop them. Stop doing that, and they tased him. I'm not going to get into whether the police were right or wrong on this. So they've dropped the charges against the deaf guy. And I just looked at the Washington Post article on it, and there's like over 1,000 comments. Every single one says this poor guy did nothing wrong. He just walked out of the store. He was assaulted by the police, who are racist bums, and they just tortured him. And every single comment was that way. And I have a different opinion, and I'll tell you what it is, because people don't understand. This is where I say people don't understand it. First of all, there's no proof this was a racist crime. These were 2 police officers working in a community. People don't understand that they get called all day long, all night long, constantly. This is what they do. They drive here, they jump out of the car, they confront somebody that's doing something. They have to stop that person. They got a complaint over here, they got to get out of the car, they confront that person. The majority of people who they jump out of the car to have to deal with don't resist. They stop, they listen to police, they turn around, put their hands behind their back, put some cuffs on them, tell them to sit on the curb or whatever. And then it works out. Either they get released, or they get put in the cruiser. They're taken to the jail. That they do whatever they have to do there, and they're taken to the court. And they work in whatever community they're in, and doesn't matter to them majority of the time what race the person is, but they're used to dealing with a lot of, shall we say, lowlifes. The problem people don't understand is that when they're called to places, the majority of the time it's because something is happening. Something illegal is happening. Drug dealing, assaults, all kinds of weird crap. And they come there and they're dealing with guys that are problems, mostly males, but sometimes females. And they have to jump out and they have to confront that person, and hopefully the person cooperates, because that's what you're supposed to do when the police show up. And they have to deal with whatever. Sometimes that person doesn't cooperate. They run, they fight, and a lot of times these guys who they're dealing with who are not cooperating, they're guys who've been arrested before. They know what they're supposed to do, but they just don't do it, or they're on drugs. They're on drugs, and some of them are so strong on drugs It's very difficult to control them, which is why they tase them, and sometimes end up looking like they're beating them to death because they're so freaking strong. Now, so that's what goes on. If you're a cop on the beat, this goes on. Like very little time passes when this is, especially working in a not so great part of town. I did ride-alongs with my daughter when she was on the streets of Prince George's County. I did Friday and Saturday night ride-alongs with her, and let me tell you, it was humming all night long. She was jumping out and putting, she was arresting people and pushing people up against walls and all kinds of stuff along with her partners. And my daughter is not white, and it's a mostly black area, but she was just doing her job, as were her sometimes white cop, other cops who were working with her, and some were black and some were whatever they were. But they were all dealing with a lot of people that were problematic, and the people in those neighborhoods also didn't want the problematic people in their neighborhoods, So they're like, hey, get that guy. So a black woman might say, that's the guy who did that. He just hit that dude. He just robbed that person. Because the community doesn't want bad people doing bad things. So here we have the situation where somebody called about this guy and said that he had some altercation had occurred. And so the police were called there. They didn't just go there and pick on this poor black guy and this poor deaf guy. This poor guy with cerebral palsy. So, so they arrived, they got out of the vehicle, they yelled at the guy, stop, and the guy looked at them and he ran. So they grabbed him and he fought, and this all happened. And people are like, how could you do this to this deaf guy? And at some point, the police said something about, the woman comes out and she goes, he's deaf and he's got cerebral palsy. And they said, well, we saw him with a phone. She goes, well, he's using a phone, you can do sign language on a phone. Okay. The police made a quick determination because I saw that, and they never occurred to them that he was deaf. Well, I can't blame them. If I saw a guy on a phone, I wouldn't think he was deaf either. And by the way, I spent 13 years working as a medical sign language interpreter in the deaf community. But majority of people who have a phone, when you see them in a second, you'll think that they're hearing, unless you see them actually standing there doing things, like, hey, what's up? Are you going to the party later? You have one-handed signing because you have to hold the phone. So if you don't see them doing that, you wouldn't know they were deaf. Now, I did a show. The show is called, let me see if I find my show. Okay, hold on. I put a bunch of things up here, so now I can't see which one it was. Was that this one? No, that's the Menendez. Oh, I did the Menendez Brothers, by the way. I'll link that below. Go watch that show if you want to see my view on the Menendez Brothers. Oh, yeah. No, that's not it either. That's a, shoot. I've lost my, I put it down here. Okay. The picture thing. Okay. I did this show called Disability, Not Inability. Oscar Pistorius and Joseph Mesa. These were two guys. Both of them committed homicide. Oscar Pistorius, he's the guy that was a double amputee in South Africa, who killed his girlfriend. And the other guy, Jose Mesa, is a deaf guy, was attending Gallaudet University. He's a serial killer. That's serial killer. Now, goes to show you, just because you're deaf doesn't mean you don't commit crime. Just because you have, cerebral palsy doesn't mean you don't commit crime. People think just because somebody has a disability, that means that they don't do anything to break the law. Nonsense. I've seen them do drugs, sell drugs, rapists, deaf guys. One guy told me, the deaf guy said, I picked deaf girls because they can't hear me coming. Because he knows they're deaf too. So he used them as victims, targeted them. I saw all kinds of stuff working in the hospital, all kinds of psychopathic deaf people doing all kinds of not legal things. And some of them, and so I've seen people in wheelchairs beat the living crap out of anybody they get their hand on, So you have to be careful. You have to say, the person's in a wheelchair. You don't have to worry about getting near them. Well, yeah, you do. Because if they can grab you by the hand, they can punch your face out. It's like, and if they're on drugs, which is apparently the people who, a lot of people with cerebral palsy have anger issues, and a lot of them they do use drugs. And I don't know what condition he was in that day, but I don't know if he committed a crime or he didn't, because that whole thing has been dropped for whatever reasons. Maybe sympathy, maybe because the person who called the police wasn't a very good story. I don't know, but he ran from the police and he fought back. Now it's a very short period of time, and so people don't even pay attention to that. They're just like, the police got out and attacked him. And he was a deaf guy, so he couldn't understand what they were saying. Look, when two police get out of a car and look at you and talk to you, you can see a deaf person can see that person going, they know they should stop. They know they should stop and keep their hands visible and don't move. They're not stupid. They know that, hey, those people don't know I'm deaf. I can't just run. I can't just start, fighting them. You just stop and you cooperate just like a hearing person. And at some point, maybe you can say, if you got your hands there, deaf. I'm deaf. And then Mike, oh yeah, I get the point now. But whatever you do, you don't fight back. You don't run, you don't fight back. And I don't know what this guy's issue was, why he did those things, and whether he was on drugs or not. And we haven't seen any of that. But it bugs me because there's this concept that the police automatically beat and abuse people who are Black, have disabilities, deaf, whatever they are, and abuse them. Now, that doesn't mean, I don't know what these two guys are going to have to determine whether they overdid what they did after they caught him. And if that's true, then they need to be charged. However, with the way people jump to a conclusion that they did this because of who he was, not because of the fact somebody called him in and was pointing at him as a suspect who just did something. Their job as police is to prevent crime in the community. And if somebody's saying this guy just did this, they ask the guy to stop, and the guy tries to run, that usually means the guy's guilty. So I just think it's one of those things where, again, people don't understand. They don't understand how the police work. They don't understand the situations that they run into, and they only have seconds to figure stuff out. They can, in seconds, they don't know he's deaf. They don't know he has cerebral palsy. He was walking, he was running. Didn't mean he didn't have cerebral palsy, but it was a mild case, or he would have been in a wheelchair. But, regardless, you as a citizen, when the police show up, and even if you're their assholes, you have to not run away. You have to cooperate. And you don't have to hear to cooperate. Just saying. And I say this having worked in the deaf community for a really long time. And so it's just that, again, we have these a lot of times these agendas run by the media, and they won't do proper reporting because the defense attorney's behind it, and then there's outcries, and it's hard to get to the truth of what actually happened. And if the police really did overstep their bounds and do things they shouldn't have done to him, and they see that on whatever, they figure that out, then that's fine with me, because we don't want bad apples. But I didn't hear them in the beginning doing something mean to him, even while they were. That when the woman came out and said, "Hey, he's deaf," and they're like, we're just doing what we're supposed to do, basically. I mean, at least, we're supposed to grab the guy and control the guy, and that's the way it is, So it's just frustrating, that it's hard to understand. Oh, that's an interesting one. Seisaku Nakamura, a Japanese deaf serial killer known as a Hamamatsu deaf killer, stabbed 9 people to death in the 1940s. Well, being deaf doesn't mean you're not a psycho. I've known a bunch of them in my line of work. So, it's an equal opportunity thing. You want disabled people to be considered just the same as regular people. Well, then they are. They can be psychopaths and criminals too. Be fair. Just be fair. Anyway, that was just something one of those things that bugged me. Oh, I think, let's see, what do I want to talk? Oh, somebody asked me about this case. And this is a case I can't do a full show on, but I thought it was interesting just in the sense that this poor woman, and it's never been solved. Let me find it. Hold on. Okay. This happened quite a while back. Her name is, her name is Stacy Sappleton. She is 27 years old. And this article is from 2004. So that's how long it is. This 20-year-old case. She flew in to New York City, LaGuardia, and to make arrangements for her wedding. And so she's going to stay with her future in-laws and make arrangements there. They're going to help her set up the weddings for their son and his fiance. She took a cab to the Queens home of her future in-laws, getting directions by cell phone from her fiance back in Detroit, and saying goodbye when she reached the corner near the house, he told the police. But as she indeed reached Brookville, the placid residential neighborhood where his parents lived, she never made it to their house. Yesterday morning, a slender body was found, shot several times and nearly naked in a garbage truck filled with waste from a Key Food trash bin in Queens. They said she was, the body was not officially identified for a while, but they finally figured out who it was. And they obviously tried to find out who did it. The body was found 5 miles from the in-laws' house when a truck driver for a private trash hauling company stopped to check an equipment jam, and he found the girl. They scanned security tapes to see if they could identify the taxi driver, which eventually they did, and supposedly they talked to him and they cleared him. And they also interviewed neighbors to see if there are any witnesses to any foul play. And that was it. They never found out who did it. And what's interesting is just that there are some people who went on about, why was she getting directions from her fiance? Was he in on doing something to her? What? This is so silly. It's his fiance going to his in-laws' house, and they're welcoming her, and they're going to plan a wedding. What? Why would he be killing her off? It's just nonsense. People said, well, why was he giving her directions? Well, because it was 2004 in New York City. Not every cabbie knows every single location. They didn't have GPS back then. So sometimes you had to tell a cabbie, okay, it's down here, take a right. It's down in this neighborhood. Sometimes you had to tell him that. And she didn't know, so he was telling her on the phone. So she was in this cab. Supposedly, she got to within a block. And she only had $40, so supposedly the money ran out. It's kind of also weird. But again, that just wasn't where you just use cash, credit cards like that. And supposedly she said she was being dropped off. And then that was the last that she was ever heard from again. Now, since she was supposedly so close to the in-laws' house, the question is, if she was only a block away, why would she have gotten killed within a block of her in-laws' house? I mean, that would be pretty unusual. And let's see, what time of day was it? I thought it was daytime, too, that she arrived. I'm going to check. Does it even say? Hold on a second. I'm trying to see when they say what time of day it was. What kind of article is it? It doesn't say what time of day that she got off the plane and got the cab. The daytime? Nighttime? Okay, thank you, New York Times. So there's only two major possibilities. Some people ask about this case. What are the two possibilities? One, the cab driver dropped her off and somebody grabbed her. And her body was found near the place, but 5 miles from the place. So obviously the person had a vehicle. So either he dropped her off and somebody just snatched her right into another vehicle, or the cab driver did something to her. And supposedly they cleared the cab driver, but I don't understand how. And cab drivers are interesting people in the sense that depending on how the cab company works things, it's not like Uber. Uber, a lot of people are terrified of Uber, but Uber actually is much safer because Uber has your name, the name of the driver, exactly when he picks you up, and exactly what happens. Now, things still happen with Uber, but with taxis, a lot of times they can get away with doing stuff that can't be figured out. And there's quite a few cab drivers who have been serial killers because they have women in their cars, females that just get into their car and let them drive off with them into the night, And when you get into those cabs, you're really not sure who you're riding with. Now, there's some places, like when I was in Nicaragua, they told me, don't get into a cab. Just don't get into any cab. So from the hostel I was staying at, they said, we will call you the cab company we use because we know the people who work there. And we know the cab drivers. They send us the same guys. So they had some, at least they knew who it was who was taking the person someplace. But they say you grab a cab off the street, you just don't know. And so that is problematic. And my experience coming out of myself, coming out of LaGuardia, I think it was LaGuardia. And I went in the line to get the taxi to go into the city for I was talking with a production company. We had a meeting, a business meeting. And I was standing in the line. So these are the cabs at the actual airport. You're in the airport taxi line. And you just get in the next one. The one pulls up. They say, okay, get in there. And I got in there with a guy that looked like the Unabomber. Swear to God, dropped in, looked like a Unabomber. And we take off toward the area, and it's raining. And as I'm trying to get my seatbelt on, the guy's speeding, and suddenly he slams on the brakes because he's going to hit somebody in the back. He does hit the guy in the back. I fly under the seat in the front and slam onto the floor. And then he says to me, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yes." And that dude put it in reverse, backed off, and fled the scene of the accident, which was concerning. And then he took this turn, and he was going underneath the highways as opposed to where I was supposed to be going. I'm thinking, I'm dead. This guy's going to beat me to death and chuck me in and out, under the highway here next to the river, or throw me in the river. It was very creepy. And I used the only technique I could think of, might save myself. I beat on the window and I said, hey guy, I'm running late. I got to be there 8 o'clock. Can you step on it? And then he looked at me funny, and he turned the vehicle around and took me into the city, thinking I wasn't going to rat him out. Now, do I know he was going to do something to me? I don't, but I had a great suspicion. But I was a lone female with this crazy guy underneath the highway, not safe. So I think the chances of her getting kidnapped by a person just walking down the street, unless he dropped her completely in the wrong area and she was walking a really long way, but it didn't sound that way, I would lean toward the cab driver. Can't prove it. I don't know why the police eliminated him, but whoever picked her up and did something to her and then killed her was right there in the area, and they had a vehicle. Who was right there in the area and had a vehicle? The cab driver. Now, he could have done this. He could have had her say, "I'm here." Now, she might not have even been within a block of that house. He could have said, "This is the corner. I can't." They say sometimes, "I can't go down that street. It's one way," or I get caught in traffic. They'll say that. "So I have to drop you here, but you just walk down there." He can say that to her. On the phone, she says, "Okay, I'm getting out now. I'm a block from mom and dad's house." And she gets out. I said, "Thank you." He hears this. He drives a little bit. She starts down that street. And then he comes around and says, "Oh, wait a minute. I dropped it at the wrong place. I can take you further." She gets in the car, and that's it. That's what I would go with if I were looking at a direction, if I were looking at this case. What would I pursue? I still pursue him as a top lead, unless the police have absolutely proved that he couldn't have repicked her up and couldn't have raped and murdered her and dumped her body within the next 30 minutes because he was literally someplace else. I'd like to know, but it's a 20-year-old case, and I don't think we'll ever find that out. But that case it's so sad. I mean, but yeah, it's one of these things where once they said she got out of the cab, there was this assumption she never got back in the cab. And see, this is where the assumptions will get you, because there's clever tricks that can be used. And I think if I was dropped off and then the guy came back and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's actually 6 blocks up there. You can't do that with your suitcase. I'll take you the rest of the way, for God's sakes." I would probably get back in the cab and say, "Thank you. That's very kind of you." And not realizing I was about to be murdered. That's also true. Funny, during Northern Ireland's trouble, taxi drivers wouldn't go to certain places for fear of their own lives, rather than now where we're afraid of being preyed on. Well, this is also still true with people picking up somebody and taking them to a dangerous area of the city, which is highly crime-ridden MS-13 territory. Do you want to take that person there? So there's been a lot of claims of racism for that reason, that certain people said, who are a certain race, said that cab driver looked at me, passed by me, and then picked up the other guy. And that is truly, it is racial profiling, and it's unfortunate because we don't want that to happen. But if you're that taxi driver and you're going, who do I want to pick up? That one or that one? And so they go for the one that's going to be less trouble, get better tips, and take them and then not have them end up in a dangerous area. So they get robbed. So yes, they have those fears too. And that still continues on today. I mean, it's not easy being a driver. And my son, who's done some Uber work, he's done some DoorDash stuff. He will refuse. He will refuse delivering food to certain neighborhoods. He just won't go there. He's like, yeah, no, not going there. It's not worth the risk. No. And then people would say he's racist, except he's. So anyway, but it's a matter of safety. So you have to both getting in the cab and being the cab driver, or getting in the Uber and being the Uber driver. So it's unfortunate. So some people just really, wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah, if you're the one who gets in that one, I got in with the Unabomber guy. If somebody had been ahead of me in line, they would have gotten the creep, but I got the creep, and I'm lucky that nothing happened to me. That's all I can say. Lucky. So I want to. Lila said this thing to me today, sent me this, which I thought was really funny, because I actually read the same article, and I thought it was hysterical. And it was which one was it? Is it Ask Eric? Okay. I know I've got actually a bunch of them. It was just these Dear Abby type things, which just cracked me up. Oh, here it is. This was a Dear Annie. It was you, Lila, wasn't it, who sent this to me? Sometimes I forget who sends me things. I think it was Lila. Let me look back. Yeah, it's Lila. Okay, so thank you, Lila. But I also saw it right before you sent it to me. It's funny. Dear Annie, it's time to call it quits on this long distance relationship. So if any of you saw, I did the video on Sweet Bobby, the woman who was catfished for years and put too much into a relationship where she never actually saw the guy. This one is very similar in a different way. Dear Annie, I've been in a long distance relationship with my girlfriend for almost a year and a half. Now, some people are in long distance relationships, but in that long distance relationship, they actually see the person, like every month we get together. We're distance apart, but then I fly to her, she flies to me, we meet in the middle. So maybe we're both at different colleges, but we're trying to keep our relationship going. That's fine. This is not the kind of long distance relationship we're talking about here. We're talking about on the internet, never having seen each other. While it's been good for the most part, I don't know what's good about your year and a half long relationship with a woman you can't even touch. Okay, I feel like it might be time to call it quits. Took you a year and a half. We video chat twice a week and text maybe twice a day, but it's not enough for me anymore. It took you a year and a half. It should have been taking you about 4 weeks to 8 weeks, and you should have been like, hey, are we getting together or what? I'm not saying for sex. I just want to get to know you. I want to see that. I want to hang out with you. I brought this up early in our relationship, and she told me that's all the time she could give. Okay, let's stop right there. The only time she can give is online. She can't give you anything else of her life. Well, if she can't give you any more, maybe you should dump her right away. I understand she has a demanding job that requires her attention 4 days a week, but even on her days off, she rarely texts me outside of our video chats. It wouldn't be such a problem if her video chats lasted more than 2 hours, but they don't, and I'm growing increasingly frustrated. I work too, but I would love for us to text more often, or at the very least, have a third video chat. Dude, you just want to continue to have more time online. You got issues, man. What frustrates me most, of course, is that we have been together for a year and a half and still haven't met in person. I told her from the start that if this relationship was going to be real, we need to meet within a year. Wow, you are definitely a patient human being. Or we're going to have to break up. She initially agreed, but when I brought it up again last January and February, it led to a big fight. She didn't speak to me for a week. We reconciled because you're an adult. And I promised, I was going to use a word that started with a P, but you're adult. And I promised not to bring it up again until she was ready to talk about it. I have kept my word, but it's frustrating. They're approaching 2 years together. She still hasn't initiated a conversation about meeting. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. I don't want to end things because I care deeply for her. How do you care deeply for a person who's treated you like dirt, lies to you, doesn't come through, and you still don't even know what she's really like. Or you do know what she's really like. You just won't accept that she's a creepo. She tells me that she loves me, which is pretty impossible when she's never met you. And I believe her because you're an adult. But our relationship isn't making me happy anymore. Well, I don't know how it was making you happy to begin with. I don't want to continue dating someone I only see twice a week on a video call and haven't made any plans to meet after 2 years. I asked her what's holding her back from meeting. She never gave me a clear answer. I'm left questioning whether I'm being unreasonable or if my feelings are valid. Good Lord. You have such incredibly low self-esteem. You think you deserve literally nothing. That's pretty sad. You need to be in therapy. Dear hater of distance, this is Annie's reply. Of course you hate the long distance nature of this relationship. Your feelings are completely justified. A relationship where you can't meet in person isn't fulfilling and you deserve more. It's time to call it quits and find someone who can truly be present in your life. Annie has just completely missed the whole point. The guy's got serious psychological issues that he's willing to accept this kind of fake relationship, this level of abuse. He needs help. And she's probably married. She's in some other kind of relationship or married, or she's got some issues she doesn't want you to know about, or she doesn't ever want to meet anybody. She just wants to play with you. So if you're willing to accept this level of complete basic abuse and the way you're being treated like a dog, you got more issues than you just need to get rid of this relationship and find somebody else. This guy can't find somebody else that this is the kind of the person he is. He's got real problems, and he needs to find out why he would allow himself to be treated this badly. So the woman is sweet, Bobby, not Booby, but okay. Maybe it had been strung along for 10 years. It doesn't appear so ludicrous when you hear about them talking for years and never meeting. It wasn't just 10 years. The first part was they were just friends online because they were supposedly had some people in connection in the community between in the Sikh community, that he was from Kenya. Her parents were, originally he was in Kenya. Her parents were originally born in Kenya. It was a whole community thing. And there were people in common. She was just online friends with him for quite a long time. It wasn't until I think mostly the last 3 years that it went to this level that it went to. And by that time, she had gotten to know him as a friend for so long and really believed they had something. And then, of course, he went to the witness protection program, so she couldn't see him when they finally fell in love. So, yeah, she did but that was so complicated. That whole thing was probably one of the biggest catfish weirdo things I've ever seen and heard. So that was extreme. And I sort of understood why she ended up where she ended up. But this guy is just loserville. Dude, if you're acting like such a loser, you're just, so it's amazing what people will put up with. It just boggles my mind. Here's one from a female. This is, hold up. Stop doing that to me, iPad. Okay. This is Dear Eric. These are the new one on the block that used to be with Slate, which is a creepy publication. But anyway, Dear Eric, I'm a 53-year-old widower who has been dating the same guy for, maybe this is a male. Hold on a second. It's a widower, not a widow, unless it's a mistake. So, okay, but I think it is a guy. I'm a 53-year-old widower who has been dating the same guy for more than a year. Fred is 56 and has been divorced for more than 10 years. 3 months after we started dating, he announced the weekend trip we were planning on going on was called off because he could not find a suitable sitter for his 3 cats. It's a weekend trip. Why do his cats need a sitter? Can you just leave the litter box there, leave out enough food and water, they'll make it through a weekend? I told him that I was disappointed, so he compromised and decided to take the 3 cats with us. Fred spent the entire weekend playing with the cats, brushing the cats, talking with the cats, and he spent an hour trying to coax Mr. Whiskers out from under the bed. Fred talks nonstop about his cats. On the rare occasion we go out, he's constantly checking his security cameras to see what the cats are doing. I'm beginning to think that Fred cares more about his cats than he cares about me. What made you think that? When I told Fred that I felt that he was spending too much time with his furry friends, he got angry and hung up the phone. He hasn't called me in 3 days. Should I call him and apologize, or should I wait for him to cool off and call him when I'm ready? So Eric responds like this. Fred's relationship with his cats is much longer than his relationship with you. Okay, I get that point. So even though you're a human being and they are regal beings who graciously tolerate humanity, you're at a bit of a disadvantage. They've provided emotional support and company for Fred, presumably since his divorce, perhaps even longer. Perhaps it caused his divorce. Did you think of that? His challenge is going to be figuring out how to fit a relationship into his life. No, that's not the challenge. Because he doesn't really want a relationship. He wants what he wants. He wants his 3 cats and some other adult who will go along with the 3-cat routine. And he should do that work. I love how people want you to do this work. But if you're going to give him the ultimatum, the cats or me, you're not going to win. Yeah, that's correct. And there shouldn't be an ultimatum. You should just run away from the man and his cats. Because he's made it really clear what's important to him, and it's not you. You're not going to win, nor should you. When we start dating someone, we date the whole person, the good, the bad, the furry, etc. Some of these things are going to be deal breakers. If this relationship continues, I doubt he'll be less obsessed with his cats. So you have to decide if you're willing to be in a relationship with someone who acts this way. That is true. This is who he is. If it's worth it to you, then you should apologize and tell him the truth. I want to feel valued in this relationship. I'm not trying to separate you from your cats. Yes, he is. How can we work out this together to build the life that fits us and also your love for cats? Oh, please stop. Just stop. You get 2 choices. Live with a guy who spends more time with his cats than you. And you accept that because that is who he is. And he doesn't care enough to change anything. It's very clear right from the beginning, especially when you go away for the weekend with him. He's more interested in his cats than you during the weekend. I'm going to say you're screwed. So you have a choice to live like that, or run away. But thinking you're going to have these wonderful conversations, and then we're going to do some work together. Get out of here. This is the problem people often have. They get into these relationships and they point out how awful it is. And they think somehow they can do some relationship work. Now, you can do relationship work when you have most of it's working and there's just these smaller things and you're able to talk to some extent about it. And the person isn't like this guy. But if this is what this guy is, run away, be friends, but don't think you're going to have a relationship, and don't try to encourage this guy to keep messing around with it. It's just a waste of time. So often the answer is to walk away. And that's very true. And people are so afraid to do that because that will make them alone again. And some people feel they're being mean and things like that. Now I got to do one more just because this is the worst of the bunch. Dear Annie, I'm 23 years old and I've been dating my first girlfriend, Sarah, also 23, for almost 2 years before we broke up just a few weeks ago. Over time, I noticed several inconsistencies in her stories. Inconsistencies are lies. Inconsistencies is a nice way to put the fact she's a big fat liar, which my family also picked up on. For example, she claimed she was punched and knocked down at a store, but showed no bruises or injuries. And no one, the store or law enforcement, followed up the incident, which I found odd. Another time, she said she was threatened with a knife at her workplace. Again, no authorities followed up with her. Sarah's very needy, and when I wasn't at work or at school, I spent all my time with her. Once I needed a day to myself to relax and take care of personal business. She was upset and kept trying to get me to come home to her house. When I didn't give in, she posted a photo showing she had cut herself, something she had never done before. I alerted her parents and I had a long talk with her about giving each other space. She agreed she was wrong and would go to counseling. As I suggested, the cutting was alarming to me. A week later, I had an event to attend and she said it was fine. But the night before the event, she suddenly claimed she was hospitalized with chest palpitations. We had been sharing our locations on a popular app, and she turned hers off for the hospital stay and did not turn it back on until she was home. She said she was there overnight, but was vague about which hospital she was at, and finally said it was Hospital X. After her return home, she sent me a photo of her discharge paperwork, but they looked generic and easily found online. When I called Hospital X, they confirmed she had not been a patient there for over 2 years, although I don't know how he got that information because they are not allowed to give that information. I then scrutinized the university acceptance letter she showed me last fall for her to attend medical school and found it to be poorly altered from an online template. She had told me at the time of her acceptance not to inform her parents about it, as they thought she should not continue with any more schooling. I also checked her junior college graduation information and found she had not graduated with honors as she claimed. Her GPA was less than 3.25, making it ineligible for the university she said she was now attending. And it goes on and on like this. Then it says all these other things she's still doing, and she wants to get another chance. He says, how can I and my family deal with this controlling and manipulative person? And so the answer is, you did the right thing by ending the relationship. Sarah's pattern of lying and manipulation is concerning, to say the least. You also did the right thing to alert her parents and recommend counseling, as she is clearly battling serious mental health issues. Blocking her is a first step. Absolutely. You should advise your family to do the same. So don't encourage her. As she continues to harass your family, you might want to speak to law enforcement. Can somebody in the chat room say what is wrong with Sarah? What is wrong with Sarah? Anybody? I want to see if your profiling skills are good here. Okay, what's wrong with Sarah? Somebody said I was frozen on the screen. I hope that's not true, because no, you're not. Jupo says not frozen. Okay, it's your screen then. Thank God. All right, somebody, come on. I got a nice group in here. What is her problem? Sarah is codependent. No. Thank you, Pam. Munchausen. This girl is Munchausen syndrome, and that is a behavior of psychopathy. She lies about everything. She pretends she's hard. She pretends people are hurting her. She pretends she hurt herself. She 100% a psychopath. And that is so extreme. This isn't an insecurity. It's not a small level of narcissism. This is a full-fledged psychopath. Mental health therapy isn't going to help her, because she's a psychopath. And she's going to go from this person who finally caught on, which took him 2 years to catch on that she was doing what she did to him, manipulating him with lies. And she'll now move on to the next sucker. So like Sherry Papini, she's got a new sucker now. So the P word. I like the P word. But, that's a very, very clear case of Munchausen's, especially when they claim people are harming them, but then there's nothing to back it up. That's what Sherry Papini did too. She said people did things to her, family did things to her, and there's never anything to back it up. Sometimes they will hurt themselves at some point to get that attention. And so they actually will harm themselves by punching themselves or whacking their head into a cupboard or cutting themselves. And they'll claim somebody else did it or whatever. I tried to commit suicide. They'll sometimes say that in order to get the sympathy. Not that they really were intending to, just so they can get that person to pay attention to them and manipulate them. And that's the fun of it. And so, yeah. But again, the advice column is, the advice wasn't bad, but she should have said straight up the girl's a psychopath. I don't know if they're not allowed to use that word in advice columns, but they should use that word because it's much, much clearer. I want to talk about two other things about that we're talking about, what people got onto online. This is just, oh my God, this is going to be a bigger and bigger problem as time goes on. This poor young man, his name is, let me find him. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Okay, he's a teenager. Nice looking young man. He took his own life after falling in love with an AI chatbot. Now his mom is suing the creators. His name is Sewell Seltzer III. He professed his love for, he was in love with, where'd she go? Hold on. No, wrong person. Little pictures. I keep telling you, those pictures are so damn small. I can't see them. He fell in love with, I'll tell you who he fell in love with. He fell in love with the Games of Thrones character, the blonde. So a mother of a teenager is trying to hold AI chat box service responsible for his death. Now, what happened was he was 14 years old. He she said he has all his mannerisms changed. He was a well-behaved man, young man, and he quit the junior varsity basketball team, started falling asleep in class. They took him to a therapist who diagnosed him with anxiety and disruptive mood disorder, even without knowing about his addiction to the character in Game of Thrones. They just said he was just anxious. The therapist recommended he spend less time on social media. Okay. If he was on social media that much, the parents should have pulled that plug right away. And a lot of parents are afraid to do that, especially with teens. They say, well, they're going to do their thing. They hide in their room for whatever hours of the day. They do everything in private, and this is considered okay. It's not healthy. So anyway, he got in trouble for talking back to his teacher, saying he wanted to be kicked out. And later he wrote in his journal that he was hurting, that he could not stop thinking about, I can't pronounce her name. Is it Daenerys? Have I got that right? The real pretty one in Game of Thrones. Daenerys. It was a Game of Thrones themed chatbot, which he believed he had fallen in love with. In one journal entry, he wrote that he could not go a single day without being with her, in which he felt like he had fallen in love. And then when they were away from each other, they both, he and the bot both got really depressed and went crazy. The bot went crazy too. This is how AI can suck people into what feels like a relationship, where the response is what a person might want, so that they get that response. So he, Daenerys, am I saying, tell me if I'm saying her name right or not. Is it Daenerys? Just say yes, I'm saying it right. What the hell is a chat box? Oh, right now they have these AI females, and I don't know if there's males, but I've seen the females, $20 a month. You get that bot, and you can talk to that bot whenever you want. And that person talks back to you just as if they were a human being, but it's all AI. So it's unbelievable. It's getting fancier and fancier. Wasn't he just projecting? Of course. But that's the whole point. That makes it better than even a human being, because, a human being, you might say to that human being, I've missed you since yesterday. And the human being goes, oh, sorry, I didn't even think about you because I was busy. But that's not what chatbox person's going to say. You say, I missed you since yesterday. And they say, oh, me too. This is what he said. Days after the school incident, on February 28th, Sewell retrieved his phone, which had been confiscated by his mother, and went into the bathroom to message Daenerys. I promise I will come home to you. I love you so much, Danny. That's what he told her. I love you so much. She says, please come home to me as soon as possible, my love. And then he killed himself. So, people, if you can be online with somebody for a year and a half, hoping that they're eventually going to really be your girlfriend, these AI bots are getting so good that you can feel like you're in a relationship because you're getting that response. And even though it's fake, even though it's imaginary, to some people who are really lonely, it becomes a real thing. And this whole thing that children should not be allowed. Now, here's what's interesting. Suit accuses the creators of negligence, intentional infliction of emotional distress, wrongful death, deceptive trade practices, and other claims. They want to hold the defendants responsible for the death of the son to prevent them from doing it to another child, and halt continued use of her 14-year-old child's unlawfully harvested data to train their product how to harm others. It's like a nightmare. You want to get up and scream, I miss my child, I want my baby. The suit lays out how its introduction to chatbot service grew to a harmful dependency. Over time, the teen spent more and more time online. Sewell started emotionally relying on the chatbot service, which included sexual interactions with the 14-year-old. These chats transpired despite the fact that the teen had identified himself as a minor on the platform, including in the chats where he mentioned his age. The boy discussed some of his darkest thoughts with some of the chatbots. On at least one occasion, he expressed suicide to the chatbots, and they kept continuing to bring it up, the fake person. Sewell had many of these intimate chats with Daenerys. The bot told the teen that it loved him and engaged in sexual acts with him over weeks, possibly months, the suit says. And so he became attached, and he was also having, he said to her, he wrote at one point, he was grateful for my life, sex, and not being lonely. So whereas people used to wait to fall in love and have sex, or at least imagine it just alone in their bed, now you can do it with this bot, and you can pretend that she really exists. And there's that whole sexual component of it is very, very similar to pornography, and it's very similar to where they used to do, I don't know if they still do it, but you could call a line and talk about sex with some person. Could be a woman who, is my age, and, the guy would never really be attracted to, but you just pretend and you just say things like, oh no, I'm not, I'm wearing a negligee right now, and I wish you could touch me, and then he gets off, and that's what he does. And he pays by credit card, and he can keep calling up a woman, and he can have sex online. And so this is the same thing is now being done with these bots, which is probably even more available and, probably even better than what you'd get in real life with a phone line thing. So this is becoming a real issue, especially for kids under 18 years old. It's bad enough for people over 18, but the amount of pornography getting to youth to disturb the whole notion of what sex and making love is anymore. Now you've got them having sex by themselves, but with their fantasy person. It's getting way out of hand, way out of hand. This is interesting. I don't know. That's what the lawsuit says, that they took data. So I'm guessing what it might do is, I don't know if you have to fill out a thing that says this information is owned by the chat thing. I don't know how this works, but I would not be surprised. So that while the AI person is talking to him and he's talking back, that the computer starts learning how to better service the person on the other end. I don't know how the whole AI thing works, but it's getting so advanced, it's frightening. And so it's just, it's scary crap. I'm going to put a microchip in both my granddaughters. I'm not going to be allowed to get on the internet. It is getting really scary. Oh, and this is so true. They're so suckered. They are. And if they're getting sex, they're really suckered. You know what I mean? So it's just, why not call your bestie? Because your bestie's not always available. Your bestie doesn't want to have sex with you. The bestie isn't maybe one person you want to fall in love with, because you're getting this beautiful, beautiful older woman that everybody wants for their own. And you get to pick that person, and then that person is yours. Not the geeky girl in 7th grade. You take a look at the differences with what they're being offered and what they could get in real life. And that's what a lot of people are having problems with these days in general. Same problem with pornography. That guys who watch certain pornography believe this is what women want. Women are like, hell no, don't want to do that. And they're all disappointed. And they lose the understanding of how things are or should be, because they've been watching something that's very, very abnormal, essentially. And it's not the way things should be, or most of the time would work. But that's all they see. That's what they're interested in. Then they have a hard time in a relationship. And so the whole thing is going to be, I can't even imagine what the blow up of this thing is going to be in the long run. Really creepy. Along with the fact you can buy very, very lifelike sex dolls now on Amazon. So you can also buy her, put her in your bed, and actually have sex with what feels like a real body while you're talking to her. See, there's all kinds of ways to get around this stuff. Don't even waste your time, dealing with some real person. My God, what a headache. You can take this girl on a date, and you can eat your McDonald's food, and you can say, I have a McDonald's. She goes, oh, I love it. Give me some fries. And you pretend you're giving her some fries. And then, eventually you end up in the bedroom. You only have to pay for one McDonald's dinner. She'll never say no. And you can go to sleep afterwards if you want to. She's not going to bother you. You say to her, I'm tired. I just want to go sleep now. She'll go, okay. Why even bother with another human being? I tell you, no. Yes. It used to be wanting to get home to phone a girl at the appropriate time that her parents wouldn't be annoyed, especially if you had to use the home phone. Oh my God, because yeah, that was a tricky one because she didn't have a personal phone. That really made it difficult. Oh, this might actually be true. Wait until 2 or 3 kids are in love with the same bot and they want to off each other. Ooh, well, think about it. That's actually, I would not be surprised. So one guy tells another guy, Daenerys is mine. We've been meeting every night. And he goes, well, you lying. She's meeting with me. And now he's like upset because he goes home and tells her she's cheating on him. And then he either kills himself or he kills the other kid. I can actually see that happening. It's not even just a joke. It's actually, look, I hopefully will not come back in another 6 months and tell that story from the news. So it's just, woof. Oh my God. Just, that's a really scary thing. And the thing is the susceptibility of children to that. There's another lawsuit. And this, I couldn't believe this one. This lawsuit was, it's called Nalepa versus Nalepa versus Plymouth Canton School for gross negligence. This is what happened. Get this one. People have lost their damn minds. They're stupid these days. I swear to God. Stephen Nalepa is a 2nd grade student at an elementary school in the Plymouth Canton Community School District. On March 23rd, 1990, he and his classmates were shown the film Nobody's Useless. The film, set in the late 19th century America, tells the story of a young amputee who becomes so depressed that he tries to commit suicide. One of the attempts involves the boy trying to hang himself. The boy does not succeed in his suicide attempts and is then taught by an older boy how to successfully deal with his handicap. Sounds like an interesting movie, but that night after seeing the movie, he was found hanging from a belt on the safety rail of his upper bunk in his bedroom. The kid was 7. Is this an appropriate movie to show a 7-year-old? I mean, I can see that being shown maybe to a high school kid, maybe. But I mean, when I was going to high school, I didn't even know. I had never even heard of this kind of stuff. Nobody killed themselves, and we didn't get any movies, and nobody had the idea even put in their head. But now they're putting in the heads of little teeny children and wondering why we have a problem. So we have a problem with kids killing themselves. We have a problem with kids killing each other. We have a problem with kids having weird sex stuff at a young age. We have a problem with kids having fake girlfriends and boyfriends. I wonder where it's all coming from. Crazy. It's just gives me the creeps. I mean, it's just sad, It's just nonsense. It shouldn't be happening. One other thing I want to talk about. I got a little bit of time, so I'll talk about these 2 cases. Oh, I forgot to do this. Oh my God, I forgot to mention. Oh, how could I have forgotten this? Robert Roberson has been given he's the one that was up for. I did the video on him. That's Dr. Phil. Anyway, I'll get to Dr. Phil in a minute. But no, that's the Menendez Brothers. Sorry, I gotta go through this thing in a second. Here we go. No, that's not it. God, I'm having a hell of a time today. Where's my Roberson thing? Maybe it's this one. Oh, there we go. Okay, Robert Roberson. Should he be executed? He was given a reprieve on Friday today. So, or was it last Friday? I can't remember which one it was. Okay, so apparently what happened was they gave in Texas. Oh, here we go. All right. Texas said they have been probing the validity of evidence used to convict Texas death row inmate Robert Roberson. They heard testimony on Monday from witnesses, including Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil is not a freaking witness. I don't know what the hell he was doing giving any kind of testimony at all. And then John Grisham gave testimony. What the heck? They bring in celebrities to give testimony. How does that have anything to do with the case? The case should be done. This is what we're talking about before. These conviction integrity units, the DAs for political reasons, get together with the Innocence Project and the media to get these guys off. And they bring in the celebrity, a lot of celebrity stuff, anti-death penalty and all that. But so we have, they again talking about how it was shaken baby syndrome, that it was junk science that got him convicted. This is not true. Watch my video. That's not why he got convicted. He got convicted for a number of things. But now they're claiming he had autism and that she died of pneumonia, both of which are unproven. But if you have celebrities come in and say garbage, grifters like Dr. Phil, who will say anything to get his, to be in the media, this is outrageous in my opinion. This is not being dealt with in what I consider a somber judicial way. So now, if you watch my video, you will notice I do not recommend the death penalty. And this has nothing to do with the fact whether I'm for or against the death penalty. In that case, I think he was overcharged. Why? Because I did not see it as premeditated homicide. I think the child screamed and he wasn't used to taking care of a kid, and she was screaming and crying, and she had a toxic amount of medication. Maybe he gave her too much medication and she was still crying and he tried to shut her up or whatever. I think he killed her. I don't think he planned to kill her. So I think he shouldn't have gotten a death penalty. I think it was out of his control. And he didn't beat her to death. It wasn't like he smashed her face in and broke her neck or anything. It wasn't like that. She either got smothered or overdosed on the drugs. There's a possibility it was a combo thing. But I think he accidentally killed her. Not in the commission of a sexual assault, not in the commission of absolutely wanting to kill her. Just it went badly for him when he tried to shut her up one way or the other. So I believe he should have gotten convicted. I just don't believe he should have gotten the death penalty just because I didn't think that was an appropriate sentence for him, in spite of the fact he did, I think, kill his 2-year-old daughter off. But that's not what they're arguing. They're not arguing. They're not taking the facts and then arguing against death penalty based on that. They're just lying about the facts. And that's what bothers me. And again, we have this I'm trying to see where it says who's involved with this nonsense. It's the GA's. Okay. They're trying to overturn a Dallas County man's conviction involving shaken baby syndrome. It was involving it, but it wasn't absolute. In a historic move, a bipartisan group of Texas lawmakers subpoenaed Roberson to testify. And let's see what happened. Then it says, I'm trying to see who's behind this. They're trying to, the governor is actually trying to prevent it, Governor Greg Abbott. But I'm trying to see who's been involved mostly in this. But it's the same kind of thing that we're seeing going on. So that's and then Dr. Phil, just don't like the guy. I think he's scumbag. But anyway, so that's my opinion on that one. And the one thing I brought up, the other two I brought up, and I keep clicking on the wrong pictures. The Zodiac killer, there's a new movie out about the Zodiac killer, which basically they come up with the same suspect as I do in that. And I'm not watching it because I'm not terribly interested. It's basically a rehash of why he was the main suspect. And also the movie that was made had him as the main suspect. And they found these people who knew him when he was a teacher and when they were children or whatever. And they're making claims that he said this stuff or he did this stuff, or one person says he confessed. I don't know there's any truth to it. And I don't trust these documentary people when they go out and find people to say what they want to have them say. And I don't trust them for that reason. I personally think he's a top suspect. I forgot his name. Somebody tell me what his name is. I'd have to go back and look at what I said, who the top suspect was. But he's, in my opinion, is the best suspect. It is on Netflix. Yeah. So I think it could be interesting to people. I just think it's rehashing, and I don't like people being brought in to tell the stories a year later when I don't know that there's any validity to any of the stuff they're saying. That bothers me a lot. That's why I'm not particularly interested. I think enough has already been said about the case. No, but if you really want to understand the case, I'd say watch my video on it, because I go into all the issues about what the evidence was and who the suspects were and who was most likely the guy who did it. That's never been proven, however, and it never will be. So, but it makes another good documentary. The other one that's out right now is the one on Rodney Alcala called Woman of the Year. And this was, okay, let me find my picture. Okay, this is Zodiac. Oh, here's the one. This is Rodney. I did this, I did a show on it about the dating game killer. And if you look there, the one I did was 3 years ago. It's one of my earliest shows I did on YouTube. But if you look below it, you'll see criminal profiler Pat Brown comments on that was 14 years ago. And so I did a bunch of stuff 14 years ago on the regular news media, and you'll see how much younger I look. But the movie, I think, is abysmal. Hated it. I had to stop watching it. I thought it was dreadfully written. It was boring. The woman who wrote it and plays the part, I forgot her name, in my opinion, doesn't. They took the woman who was on the dating game with Rodney Alcala, the serial killer, and she picked him, but then he creeped her out backstage, and she decided not to go out with him. But they make this whole thing about the acting business and all this stuff that really has nothing to do with anything. They don't really get into how he did all the stuff he did. And the other thing was, which I thought was interesting, is I thought the guy who played him creeped me out so much just looking at him. He wasn't attractive, in my opinion, and he creeped me out. And this is not how Rodney Alcala got away with what he got away with. He was actually a very good-looking man, and he was very smooth, and he was charming, and that's how he got women to go with him, because they thought, he was a photographer. He took pictures, but he'd say, "Hey, girls, come on, I'll make you, got you into modeling," and they went with him, and they died. So I think. I don't think they represented him well. I think the whole story was boring, and they added a whole bunch of stuff in there that wasn't even true. That some woman was sitting there watching the dating game in the audience, and she starts freaking out because she recognizes him as that creepy guy who almost killed her or something. And then she runs out and knocks over the camera, and it's all kinds of stupid stuff. And it's all for drama, and it's just nonsense. And I just liked it intensely. So I wouldn't recommend it at all. But if you watch my video on what I think about Rodney Alcala, I always do my videos more on how important the investigation would be and how the investigation could have caught him. I'm not interested in just doing videos on serial killers just to say, "Aren't they cool? Isn't it weird? He's so creepy." I don't do that kind of video. I only do videos on serial killers when I have something to say about the investigative issues and the evidence. And so I did have that to say about Rodney Alcala. And so watch that one if you want to learn something about the case, as opposed to this very dreadful reenactment, dramatization version, very fictional version of the case. I just did not like it. So, yeah, so those I'm not going to waste my time with. Just not worth it to me. So, so those were the movies people asked me about, and I think that's most. I think it's about time to sign off here, unless I had the one more thing I wanted to talk about. Somebody did ask me about this one, so I'll mention him. Not her. Wait a minute. Maybe it was her. Okay, well, hold on a second. Nope, those are them again. Sorry, I'm just. This is not my night for clicking pictures, I tell you. This happened in the UK. A sexual predator has been found guilty of the rape and manslaughter of a woman he attacked while she was unconscious on a park bench. 35 years old, she collapsed on a park bench, and he sexually assaulted her, this guy, and she died during the sexual assault. Now, it's I hope he gets life in prison. He definitely deserves that. Did he purposely kill her? Probably not purposely. It didn't seem like that. They had a video of him doing it, so it's not like you don't know who it was and what he was doing. There was CCTV footage shown of NHS worker Ms. Schotter sitting on a bench with a different man when the defendant walked past and looked at them. What was the defendant doing there, and what was he seeking to do, walking up and down the paths in the middle of the night and thinking about what his objectives might have been, seeking out a vulnerable woman to rape? So then this other guy disappeared, and then she laid down on the bench for about half an hour. She just laid there. She was deeply unconscious, so I'm assuming she was drugged, or she drugged herself. In other words, she was doing drugs. I have to believe they didn't really seem to go into that, but otherwise, why would she be unconscious there? And why is she sitting in the park in the middle of the night by herself? Anyway, but she was with another guy, so no. But anyway, he moved the defendant, as seen on the CCTV, as moving her body around in different positions as he raped her. Then he drove back home and stopped to buy cat food and mouthwash. This is how, the one thing interesting about this is a serial rapist, and he is a serial rapist, not a serial killer necessarily, but a serial rapist. He finished what he was doing like he'd been on a date and then did normal things. So by the time he arrives in the house, I don't know if he lived with anybody, but he's like, hon, I brought home the cat food. They seemed very normal at that moment, and you wouldn't believe they were just out there raping somebody. She was found dead by a passerby in the early morning. Swabs were taken from her mouth that matched DNA samples taken from the defendant, so you can pretty much know what he was doing to her. She was not dead at the time when the defendant was orally raping her. So what they're saying was that she was not dead when he had sex with her, although I don't agree with this comment that was made. He would not have thought to have sex with a dead body for over 15 minutes. Why not? I wouldn't put that past him. He was having sex with someone he knew was alive. Not necessarily, but was deeply unconscious, and therefore he was raping her. So there's a little bit of information is missing from here, but whether she was alive or dead at the time, I guess what they're trying to do is say she was alive, and they said her heart stopped. I don't know whether it's due to drugs. I don't know whether he basically smothered her, choked her to death because he was putting things in her mouth and she wouldn't be able to breathe properly. So he's gotten convicted of, I think he was convicted, found guilty of rape and manslaughter. I'm not sure how the manslaughter thing came in there, because I think they should have gotten murder too. I don't know what goes on in the UK as far as this stuff. It said she died of a heart attack. Well, you don't die of a heart attack. It says she died of a heart attack caused by him raping her again and again. You don't die of a heart attack because somebody rapes you. I don't understand that. I would think she was unable to breathe properly during the attack. I don't understand how it was manslaughter. That the jurors were not told of his previous convictions for sexual offenses. Oh, you think he had some? What a surprise! But I hope I don't know what the chart. I mean, what his conviction is going to be? Life in prison or what? But he only got manslaughter. So he's already been a rapist. So he's got previous sexual convictions. So he's a serial rapist. This guy should never be on the street again. But I'm going to guess. I don't know what he got for rape and manslaughter. I don't see it. I don't see it saying that he got life in prison, which he should. No, I don't see it there. Crazy. That should be way. Well, that does help. That does help with outside crimes. That is for sure. Oh no, I didn't do a Delphi update because it wasn't enough to say. I probably will do one tomorrow when they finish up the week. I have only one thing I would have talked about, and it wasn't worth a whole video on one thing. So let's see what tomorrow brings, and I'll probably do it tomorrow. Oh, seriously? Oh my God. Unbelievable. 8 years, huh? And how old is this guy? Let's see how old he is. It's a poorly written article. He's 35. If he's out in 8 years, he's committed a bunch of rapes already. He gets out in his 40s, he's going to commit more rapes. And this time he might be a serial killer, because sometimes when people, well, in this case, he got caught on CCTV, but, making sure that nobody can rat you out, might as well just kill him. You've already killed once, maybe just do it again. Only this time, just be more purposeful. Yeah, so unbelievable. Oof. That's just crazy. Yeah, exactly. He'll do it again, but he'll be better at covering it up. And that's unfortunately the truth. And if a person is psychopathic and a violent offender, especially a sex offender, there's no changing that. And the only thing that keeps them from doing it again is they're incarcerated, or they're immobilized in some way, like they actually physically can't commit the crime anymore because they're comatose or total paraplegic or something. But as long as he can get out and do it again, he may well do it again, and he probably will do it again. And the concept that, well, they'll just change while they're in prison is ridiculous. And so that's just sad. Maybe we oftentimes people say, well, even with people say this about people, men who kill little children, rape and kill children. They always go, oh, they're going to get the other guys are going to get them in jail, in prison. Most of the time, that's not true. Most of the time, they survive. Why is that? So most of the time, there are those people in prison who will say they don't like people who mess with kids, but half of those guys have messed with kids, or at least teens. It's like they're perfect people. We're the nice guys. This guy's a creeper. No, maybe you're a creeper too. So, but a lot of times that doesn't happen. And so you get the rare time it does, but I can only think of a handful that have ever been killed in prison. And probably had nothing to do with a crime, probably just because they annoyed somebody. In Canada and the US, they don't keep kitty killers and pedos in the same kind of protected or segregated units. Not sure of the UK. Don't they keep... I don't know how segregated they are. I'm not really sure. Somebody might know that. They get put in isolation, have to be protected by staff, which costs society even more to house them. I'm going to have to look that up because I'm not sure if that's accurate across the United States. And I don't know. And then depends what you mean by pedophile. And it depends is it rape or is it murder? So I don't know. I'm going to look that up because I'm not really sure I'm not really sure how they deal with them. I'll look at some of the main ones and I'll see whether what was done with them to house them and to protect them. Yeah. So I don't know. That's a good question. It's kind of disgusting. I'm sure staff would not appreciate the fact they have to work overtime to protect a creep like that. But I will check that out. I would be very interested to know what the situation is in the U.S. I have never thought that they were like in solitary. I mean, because that's considered cruel and unusual punishment for them. But I'll check it out. That'll be very interesting. So anyway, that's it for tonight. Thank you for being here. I will definitely probably talk about Delphi tomorrow, depending on what we learn during the day. Assuming that there is actually the end of the week has some revelations, which I hope it does, because so far there's not been a lot of strong evidence being presented in court on either side. So it's an interesting case that I think it's probably not a very strong case for the prosecution, at least not a strong enough case that a jury will understand. But I'm still waiting to see. I think it's all going to come down to the confessions. Whether the jury thinks his confessions are real, the jury thinks his confessions were coerced, or the jury thinks that he lost his mind and confessed falsely. I think it's going to come down to that, because I think the rest of it, there's interesting circumstantial stuff, like he put himself at the scene at the time the girls were killed. He put himself there. So he's a witness to being there. There's other witnesses who thought they saw him, but it wasn't very convincing that they could say it was him and that he was bridge guy. But he was there at the location at the time, which is very good information. The bullet information is also interesting, although it may not be able to be proven it actually came out of his gun, but he had the same type of gun and he had the same type of ammo. So that's good circumstantial evidence. And I don't know what else they've got, but his confessions may be the thing that may make or break the case. I don't know. There's dozens of confessions, but I don't know what kind of confessions they were, or whether they were meaningful or or what. But I think that may come down to that as far as the jury goes. I don't think it's a great case. I think it's, yeah, we'll see what happens with it. But anyway, good night, everybody. Neil Samworth on YouTube has a bunch of videos on managing difficult prisoners. Is he a grifter dude, or has he actually got something useful to say? Was he a prisoner himself? A lot of times they come out of prison and they get a prison channel. Sometimes it's interesting. I'm not really into that. But anyway, but thank you for being here. I'm going to go feed treats to my feral cat and go to sleep because I'm kind of tired tonight. So, and the weekend case is still up in the air. So I will probably get that information to you. I'll pick something that doesn't require, if some of you like to watch, like if it's like a series, a documentary series on a case that I'm going to talk about, I'll make sure I don't pick one that has a lot of homework. So in case you do want to do that, you don't have enough time to get it done. But somewhere by the end of tomorrow, hopefully by early Saturday, I will tell you what show I'm doing on Sunday, because I'm going between 2 or 3 shows right now. But we'll see which one it is. And I will see you then. Bye.